September 12th, 2023. The context was, if you going back to the 4 hour, that we were between that Monday had run higher, pushing off of this 4 hour BISI, and that it had run into a 4 hour breaker. That the weekly had not yet taken any liquidity in terms of a previous high or previous low or something like that. So that the only real context was that Monday had run higher and had a fairly large range day, and that meant that we were that we may be in a weekly trend. So the evaluation for the morning was that the Monday drive could mean a trend higher. There's no news, as it already happened. The dollar is trending higher but closing in a gap above that could result in a BPR, and that's here. You can see the dollar here. You have this gap. I think it's a 4 hour gap. Let's see. Yeah, 4 hour gap. And then take that down to 15 minutes. There's a bunch of fair value gaps here that I thought, well, combined with this gap, that might turn into a balanced price range. So maybe something lower. And then additionally, as you saw the risk flows, you had this low a day that a take out of that could mean a rally, since we were in an extreme discount on gold, and you got relative equal lows on bonds. So that might mean a rally in the indices. Yes, I did mean to do that. So I was just evaluating all of that and thinking that through. We hadn't had a liquidity take, so we're basically just working on the day. All right. So then as you see this, you see that we had come up to this 4 hour breaker and essentially rolled over in the overnight. We had rolled over in the overnight. I didn't mean to turn that one off. I meant to turn this one off. And so that meant probably lower prices first, and then maybe a push higher to then move lower. But here's how I evaluated that. And if you start at the 4 hour, you're basically starting at the 6 a.m. and it looks like this is holding here, so it's probably going to go lower. And what had happened also, if you look at lower time frames, you'd see that we attacked this fair value gap and basically held a little bit below the consequent encroachment. So that meant, like, okay, it could kind of go both ways. Not sure. But here's what I also saw. As I said, even though there are potential draws up here, what we have is a balanced price range here that is attacked and rejects. Then you have a flout, which if you take the whole of it and then cut the second or the bottom half in half, then that price could potentially hold and should hold. And when I had that criteria, I drew this from here down to here, and the 50% liquidity takeout was right there. So, since fair value had held here once and held here once, if this gets taken and we reverse, then we are probably looking for liquidity lower. We're probably looking for something to be taken out. So that was the concept, the idea that I had. One of the things that has evolved in how I'm looking at the markets is I no longer take front side trades. I'm waiting for some sort of low time frame configuration that allows me to say, okay, now that this 15-minute breaker bar has been attacked, I'm allowed to trade it. So this is something that happened today that was, unlike, I just don't have enough experience seeing what I'm seeing and knowing the difference between whether or not I'm wrong and should let go, or if I'm being told that it's just time distortion. So that becomes a question that I asked myself today, is exactly that. When is it time distortion, and when is it telling you that you're wrong? So if you walk down through the 5 minutes, you get the first willingness to go down here. So that's our where we expect a PD array to form. And if we walk down, sorry, I'm going to do this just so I don't have to continually keep scrolling it back and forth. As you walk down in the 4 minute, there's nothing there except for an order block, which is okay. We can look at that. And then another order block. That's it. There's no fair value gap. We do feel like this is a displacement. It's a change in order and delivery. There's no fair value gap. There's nothing. You get down to the 1 minute, and now you see the fair value gap. And half of it's in and half of it's out of premium. So since there is no breaker here, you only have this fair value gap and that order block. So one thing I didn't do, but I could have done, is said, okay, this, I could have said, this is, that is PD array 1, and this is PD array 2, and I'll make these a different color because I can see that they're getting a little overlappy. Okay, and we don't, there isn't a third. The third would be this wick, and we don't really want that to be taken. So we said 1 and 2, that's what we wanted to do. And then this is where the time frame that seems to be ruling. And why do I say that? I'm going to back up to the very first thing at 9:30. What you see is a liquidity takeout, a market structure shift, and a fair value gap that holds. And that, if you do the same thing, you get a 5 minute willingness to go up in a higher time frame PD array. It's actually a day time frame PD array. Why is that not work? It's a daytime inversion fair value gap. So that's the along into this. And then on the 1 minute, here's what happens. What you see is a willingness to continue down. So another displacement takes out a low, and then it leaves that order block just like that. Okay, and then as it gets above it, this is what happens. Check this out. It tests down. They're now officially, you could say that PD array 2 has been tested. Right there, that one holds this down candle and rolls up. Check that out, right there. And so at this point, I'm saying, oh, golly, I must be wrong. And even though that went through that like I didn't think it should, I didn't think it should go up. So this is the lack of experience. And then what happens? It just continues to sit there and roll, and then finally at 10:20 exactly, it takes off and goes away, and there's no chance to get in it. So I don't know if that configuration in terms of like how that plays out is repetitive or not. What I think holds this trade, I mean, all of the analysis is correct, all of the prognostication is correct. The willingness to stay on the short side, correct. PD arrays holding, correct. The discomfort I had with this is that this fair value gap wasn't like really holding, and then this PD array seems to like hold it higher. Like it looks like it's going to go higher, and then it ultimately gives up at 10:20. I've achieved what I wanted to achieve for the morning in terms of knowing where it should repel price and go to where I thought it should go, which really would have been this daily order block and the 4-hour order block. What it does from here, well, what we would want to look for now is, does it go below Monday? And I'm not going to try and figure that out right now. I'm just going to say like that's the next step in the process.